Hello, hello, hello. Hooligan Soccer Podcast coming at you with The Qooligan, as always, and myself, Gary Striker. How are you, Qooligan?
Magic hands, baby. Magic hands. Magic hands and a chip from Mateta. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I see. Well, the Palace, obviously that result just came in, managed to squeeze a point out of Arsenal, which was obviously good.
I have no problem squeezing Arsenal in any way.
Wonderful. Well, Qooligan, it's midweek. We have an interesting agenda lined up as well. We are going to be touching on the Premier League and basically sort of the finality of how it seems to be shaking out as the season comes to a close with about 7 or so games to go, I believe.
Yep.
We'll be touching on the MLS as well. And now that we're into game week 9, we've been able to run some statistical analysis. And when I say we, more you has been able to run more of the statistical analysis.
Indeed.
Touching on the CONCACAF Champions Cup semi-finals, which kick off this evening on Wednesday evening. And then, of course, this newly anointed Jägermeister Cup, which is the press release landed in our inbox, which was absolutely
Raise your
fantastic
cups
to read about. Yes, it was.
Raise your cups
yes.
to Jaeger.
So, not sponsored, not an ad.
Now we have a cup.
Not a paid promotion, but yes.
It's not a paid promotion. Notice I didn't use the entire brand.
Jaegers, yes, exactly. But what a brand. We will touch on that, though, which will be exciting. So we've got quite a bit to get through, as always, in the wonderful world of soccer. But before we do go on to that, I think it would be foolish of us not to plug, speaking of adverts, to plug our other podcast, which we are plotting and getting ready, which is called the FIFA Club World Cup, a global showdown, part of the Hooligan Sports Network that we are building and creating with yourself and myself. Do you want to share what your interpretation of it's going to be and how it's going to shake out?
Sure, happy to. The podcast will essentially be a daily quick dive, short, sharp, beautiful for snacking, and satisfying all of the audio needs that you have around soccer. But it will be a daily investigation of what happened the night before, what's going to be happening the day of. The group stage goes on for a long time. There's a lot to discuss, multiple games per day. We'll be prefacing the actual cup itself with backstories, player details, investigations on the clubs. Who are they? Especially some of these little minnows that people probably don't know a lot about. So we're going to go in and give it all. We're going to talk it all to you.
It's going to be a fun summer and a sort of obviously a prelude to the actual World Cup, the actual sort of the bigger competition, obviously next summer.
Yes.
So we've obviously put a trailer up. We've managed to sort of set it all up as well. So if you are on any of the platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, iHeart, any of your places,
come on in,
search us out,
give us some love. Available.
Subscribe, follow us, and we'll start dropping content as well and sort of growing it as well.
May I channel my inner Micah Richards? Come on in, welcome.
Oh, this is Thierry Henry, my inner Thierry Henry of.
There we go. That seems so appropriate for you. Yes.
Shameless, and who we steal from? Absolutely shameless.
You are absolutely Thierry to my Micah.
Indeed. Okay,
I don't know where Jamie sits in that, but whatever.
I'm moving on from that one. Yeah, I don't know where to go with that one. So, okay, so moving on. So we could potentially have the crowning of Liverpool in this upcoming weekend for the Premier League. Obviously, Palace just drew with Arsenal, which means Liverpool just need a draw at home against Spurs, and they will win. I think obviously it's pretty much a certainty that they'll definitely get a point and they'll probably win it given the form that Spurs are on at the moment. So
one would hope.
One would hope. That would be a bit of a shock. So, we've got Liverpool at Spurs, and I think it will be. I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion, right? We're going to be Liverpool champions. Arne Slot's Manager of the Year, which is just absolutely incredible. Having in his first season winning a Premier League, it's a really really special achievement.
Yep. Yes, it is. And you can say what you want about Klopp leaving him a team, et cetera, but. Great teams have been left to poor managers in the past, and they've not been able to do anything with them. So I think history is riddled with more of that scenario than it is of a scenario of a first-time manager taking even a very good team and all the ways. Would be a remarkable achievement.
I mean, I'm not saying Liverpool were a bad team when he sort of got handed over from Klopp, but you definitely, I mean, I don't think anyone had Liverpool at the beginning of the season looking at them and saying they are probably going to be champions as well. I think it was between Man City and Arsenal, so I think it just shows what Slot has done in terms of his his management of the squad as well. They haven't had many injuries. They haven't been able to complain about that, and it's just been really consistent, really, really consistent.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to go back and read all the pundits when it happens, and I think it is an inevitability that it will happen. Go back when they all go in and have to basically serve up crow at their end of season write-ups. I mean, I love reading those. I think they're fantastic, and to be fair, nearly all the writers that I read are quite sanguine about the fact that even at the beginning of the year, you're just kind of pulling stuff out of your butt and you're making stuff up and nobody really knows. You just try to make it sound as educated as possible. And they're always very happy to just have a mea culpa moment. Just be like, yeah, I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah, did not.
So it goes.
See it coming. Yeah. So a premature congratulations to Liverpool and all Liverpool fans as well. I think it's been really interesting to see. They've been dominant, and all of the speculation, of course, about sort of the trio of their contract situation. It seems like obviously they've wrapped up Salah, they've wrapped up Van Dijk. It looks like Trent is on his way to Real Madrid. It looks, although he bagged them the winner last weekend and got a yellow card for taking off his shirt. I think we were joking as well that
let's just say that it was for excessive celebration because man was he fired up when he hit that.
Well,
he's no dummy. He knows that every time something like that happens, his stock value rises. He knows.
Yeah. Do you think
why wouldn't it be something that you celebrate? It's still at the end of the day, all these athletes are still in some way the kids that were out on the playground, and everybody wants to hit the banger winner. Yeah. That's just natural. And if you don't, you're probably a goalkeeper.
And that's why you end up being a referee. Too soon.
No, you end up becoming a referee because you can't play anymore. For most of us. Yeah.
Wonderful. So that locks up pretty much the top end of the table. I think the only where the sort of the real interesting side now comes is who then occupies the remaining. Arsenal are probably pretty much locked into second. I don't think they'll get caught, and they'll probably finish in second place, although they can focus on the Champions League given that their great performance and just putting aside Real Madrid. But it does leave an interesting then race between third place and seventh place, and obviously having those remaining sort of 3 slots who will get those Champions League spots and obviously be able to sort of kick off for their season.
And I'm glad there's at least some kind of drama, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it because it was sort of looking like it was going to be here it is. It's all decided now, and we don't have a relegation scrap on our hands. That's all over, but the shouting.
Yep.
So yeah, that battle for Europe is real and is going to be and really makes the next 5 fixtures thrilling, very thrilling.
It does. It will be thrilling as well. And obviously, Man City.
It makes Palace's draw today that much more relevant. Seriously, because Arsenal not getting 3 points, they still have a gap.
Yeah. But
if they get distracted by this Champions League, right, they might falter.
And
there are teams that are waiting. There are teams that are waiting to take that to nip that spot. Not that you don't get anything for being in second versus third versus fourth. All right, it's not a better seeding in the Champions League. It's not a better anything. It's a pride thing.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, all the clubs want to do is get a ticket to the ball. Once they get the ticket, then they might sit there and go, well, gee, I only got the 5th ticket. Mm-hmm. You think Charlie Bucket cared that he got the 5th ticket to go to Wonka's factory? I don't think so.
Grandpa Joe was pretty happy as well.
By the way, that does, just so you know, that does not make Arsenal Augustus Gloop, but that would have been hilarious if it did. Because Augustus Gloop was the first one.
Augustus
All
Gloop
right,
was the
never
first
mind.
one. Yeah, that's. I think there's a joke in there somewhere. So.
Some literature. There's some literature knowledge being dropped here, kids. So pay attention.
Wow. So I mean, honestly, I think look, Arsenal are still 6 points clear of Man City. They've both got 4 games to play. I don't think Arsenal can drop out of the Champions League race. They've pretty much got the Champions League.
No. I think they've got the Champions League race dropped. The question is whether they're going to go in at second or they're going to go in at third.
Yeah,
and there's a chance. There's a likelihood that they could fall third.
Mm-hmm. It is.
But
that is possible.
But like I said, in the grand scheme of thing, who cares?
Yeah, this is true. Well, and then so that leaves just obviously it's a real sort of bun fight, isn't it, for Man City, Forest, Newcastle, Chelsea, and Villa to get 2 of those guys are going to be left without a chair in that sort of game of musical chairs for the Champions League. My fear is that Forest are going to wobble and they're going to drop out, and they would have done so well the whole season and then drop out. That would be a shame.
Yeah, that's a legit fear. But what they showed, how they played over the weekend, I think, has gone a long way to alleviating some of those concerns. Mm-hmm. They were very good.
They were.
They were very good
all season, and they've been good all season as well. To be fair to them, they really have. So
even though yes, it was just against Spurs, but Tottenham was pressing very hard towards the end there, and Forrest held firm. So that was it was good on them.
Indeed. Yeah. My only concern is me wanting Forest to get into the top 5 could come at the expense of Chelsea, and obviously, so it's
what first world problems you have,
champagne
Gary.
Problems compared to what mid-table Crystal Palace, obviously. Although FA Cup semi-final this weekend,
please, anytime we finish above 14th, it's like a celebration.
There we go, champagne.
And then we're looking to finish above 14th this year, so why not?
Fantastic. Yeah, looking good. Palace are looking really, really good. And it's been safe. So
we're going to Wembley. Going to Wembley.
That's this weekend. You've still got this weekend to get through, and hopefully that will be the case. Oh, actually, wait, they're playing the semi-finals.
No, they play at Wembley. This is not a lie.
Yeah, it is.
I'm
true.
Speaking truth. We're going to Wembley. Whether we go to Wembley a second time is another story, right? But at least we get one trip.
The face is in your hands. That's true. That is true. It's an incredible stadium. I've been there a couple of times. It's absolutely magnificent. It really is. Okay, so that's pretty much sort of the top. The middle of the table, they're just sort of fighting it out. It will be interesting to see if Spurs drop. And again, if Liverpool beat Spurs and West Ham get a result, that leaves Spurs in 17th place. There's no danger of them getting relegated, but you could have a world where Man U and Spurs both finish in 16th and 17th. And that will be, it'd be a terrible humiliation if it hasn't already been this season as well. But money will be spent in the summer. I'm sure bodies will be moved around and traded, and we'll see that. But as this sort of,
I'm serious. I would be checking the foundations of that new, £2 trillion circus tent that Ratcliffe wants to build, because there's going to be some people in there.
The Cirque du Soleil in there as well. Yeah, that's that tent as well. That's,
it ain't going to be the tea cozy and the tea lady in the foundation. It's going to be like Casemiro or somebody like that.
Well, they fired her, so there's not going to be anyone around in that sense, are they? So it's that's unfortunate. But with that sort of the pond, as it were, sort of league wrapping up, obviously we get a sort of sense. Relegation is pretty much locked in as well.
That's
Southampton,
done.
Leicester, both down. Ipswich,
no reason to talk about that.
There's no way Ipswich are. Yeah, Ipswich are pretty much done.
They got to win all the remaining 5 games, and even then, they got to win it by like 20 goals with a 20 goal, plus 20 goal differential in order to even have a chance.
Yeah, and Ipswich
not going to happen.
Ipswich have only won 4 games this season, and lost 20, so that's not going to be an issue.
Nope.
But it does mean, obviously, we get a bit more clarity into what next season is going to look like. So, of course, there was the news that Burnley and Leeds United both secured promotion from the Championship. And then obviously the third one is still to be decided, because the third position goes into a playoff format. It's actually, we should definitely cover this a little bit more. It's technically, I think it's the most profitable football game. The winner of that playoff to get into the Premier League is the most profitable game of soccer ever in the world, just because of the money that they get for the Premier League and the promotion on it. So it will be interesting to see who wins that. But what is an interesting trend that seems to have come out is both Burnley, minority owner JJ Watt, and Leeds United, owned by the 49ers. It's what is the correct official term for them is the 49ers Enterprise. So
just
more
in the Bay Area, we just call them the Yorks.
The Yorks.
That's the York family, yeah.
The York family, that's how it is, right? So it's interesting, this trend that we're noticing where there's a lot of American ownership of a lot of these soccer teams, particularly in England as well. I know Tom Brady has a minority stake in Birmingham City. Obviously, we've got Reynolds and I can never pronounce his name correctly. McElhenney, thank you. Yeah, I know Canadian and North American owner Wrexham, who are potentially on for a third promotion in a row to get up.
That's quite the tale.
It's into the championship
that would be a Cinderella story for the ages. Nobody has ever three-peated promotions.
Just hopped all the way
back to back.
Yeah, that would be incredible. So, and then that would potentially put Wrexham into the championship. So you can see them being a couple of years away from the Premier League. If that is the case, and they'll keep on rising. And that will be, again, there will be more documentaries. So, season 7 of Welcome to Wrexham will be an interesting one of how they survived in the Premier League, I imagine, in some way, shape, or form.
Could be.
And then there was this news that came out today. I think I shared it with the team internally as well, how Rangers in Scotland, Glasgow Rangers, are also about to be sort of subject to an American consortium purchasing Rangers as well. So there's of course, if you look around, Arsenal owned by the Cronkies, Man United, the Glazers, Chelsea, Clear Lake and Bowley, and obviously the Americans. A lot of ownership, and Tottenham as well are owned by an American group as well. So there's a lot.
So is Crystal Palace.
American ownership. Crystal Palace, Jesus, right? Is anyone except for Man City and Forest. And,
well, if you're not owned by if you're not owned by Americans, you're owned by oil barons.
That's true. Aston Villa, another American owner as well. That's it. I was just looking at it as well. This is it's quite a lot. Wow, they've the Americans really sort of love the beautiful game of soccer that it is as well. So just an interesting trend and an interesting call out with those.
They like the beautiful green.
They do, and it is very, very potent and addictive. That is for sure, right? So, I mean, look at us sitting here just grinding away as grinding away on it. So that's that will be interesting to see how that development shakes out, and who obviously is the third promotee from the championship. I don't know how much you've been following it, but there's Coventry City. They hired Frank Lampard at the beginning of the season after about 8 games. Obviously, I think they were sort of down at the bottom, and he has just completely turned them around and had a real bounce factor. So I hope he can sort of show some have an impact there and get Coventry City up into the Premier League as well and see what happens there. But yeah, we will be tracking that and following that.
I don't think Coventry's going to be one of them. I mean, I think Coventry should definitely be in the knockout stage, but it's going to be hard to tell. I mean, I think Sheffield's virtually guaranteed to be one of those 4, right? Sunderland is in a strong position. They've got 7 points in hand. 9 points in hand. Yeah. So they're likely going to be in there, but then there's a real battle between those last 2 spots, right?
Yeah. Well, that's
Bristol, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Millwall. I can't believe Millwall's in the conversation.
Jesus, Millwall. Wow. Okay, yeah, but Millwall in the Premier League would be interesting.
And sadly, Blackburn, who I was hoping it would have been really nice to have seen Blackburn back in the Prem, but they've faltered significantly off their. They had a blistering start. They just kind of fell off. So I don't see Blackburn making a late push to get in there. It's only 2 games left.
Yeah, that's true. But
there's only 2 games left. So you've really got to look at the math. You got to study it, right?
Yeah.
The best Blackburn can do is 68 points, which means that Bristol and Coventry have to lose both their games.
Yeah, that's true.
Statistically, that's an unlikely scenario. I don't know who they're playing, but I doubt that's going to be the case, right? And so
that will be an interesting development and track. And there's a lot of ex-Premier League teams in there, big sort of historical teams. Obviously, Blackburn have won the Premier League before historically, and I think it was in '95, many years ago. Coventry City were in the Premier League, Middlesbrough were. They've all sort of had their crack and been sent down and gone through various issues as well.
I think Millwall's the only one. I'm not sure if Millwall's ever been top flight.
I don't think so.
And if they have, it was a long, long time ago.
It was a long time. And if they do get inside, that will be certainly a very, very interesting tale as well, because their fans are quite special and have quite a reputation as well of being quite aggressive. And that will be interesting to say the least. Okay, so that pretty much covers up the Premier League, and obviously the promotion and relegation. We'll be tracking that, of course, as that part of the season comes to a close.
I do think that there should, because this just came across my radar. Do you know what league in the English pyramid currently going into the final game, which will be played this weekend, there are 6 teams that could win. 6. All with mathematical possibilities to win their league.
Oh, really? Which
the National League South.
Okay. All
right. 6th tier of the pyramid.
Okay.
There are 6 teams all sitting within 3 points of one another.
Yeah.
That it will decide on the last game and then goal difference.
Oh, Jesus.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That Dorking, Boreham, Worthing, Eastbourne, Torquay United. Wow.
Truro.
Okay.
Up the Cornwall, baby. Up the Cornwall.
Wonderful. Oh, the magic. This is why it's the beautiful game. It's really
just, I had to mention that because it's just so damn obscure. It's fantastic.
Incredible. Wow. And look at that. They played 46 games in a season as well. I mean, those leagues are big. Well, actually, they've got 24 teams in the league as well and play each other twice, right? That is a lot. That is a long marathon of a season.
And only one goes up.
Only one. Wow. Wow. It's tough.
I think only one goes up. And the rest go to a playoff.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. So that brings the English leagues and English sort of side, obviously, of the section to go. And then let's move over to this side of the Atlantic and look into the MLS. Now,
Mellish.
Yeah.
That's what I like to call it, by the way. That's its euphemism. The Mellish.
The melees of American soccer, right? It's so we've got 9 game weeks in, or we're into 9 games, and so you dropped a really, really engaging article I found, which was entitled "MLS Top Performers Through Week 9," and using your, I didn't realize you had this sort of statistical analysis skill set. It was very impressive in the way you did it. So
they're not statistical analysis. It's basically just being able to set criteria, stick to it, and then run a query. The real magic comes in looking at what the data spits out and being able to tell a story about it, right? And I think that's where data tells a different side of the game that you don't see on the screen, that you don't feel in the chance, that you don't suffer the highs and lows of all the game and
it becomes more of a science than an art. Yeah, it becomes more of a science than an art, and obviously, as you say, you don't look at the motive side of it. It just becomes, numbers. But
that's right.
I know there's criticism about a lot of owners, the way they sort of, look at this and purchase players and sell players and run clubs based on the statistical analysis versus the magic.
Which is a mistake, by the way. I don't think that's, and I would never advocate doing something like that. But you need to look at those things, but you also need to look at the way the player plays. But that's neither here nor there. We're talking about stats because there were some really interesting things that came out of looking after 9 games, because I did this after 5 games, found some stuff, but really it's such a statistically small sample that everything that you see can be impacted by a single anomaly. Like somebody has a hat trick and all of a sudden, that just throws everything off, and maybe they don't score at all for the rest of the season, but at least for that first 5 games, they're huge. With 9 games, you're beginning to get a bit more, everything's flattening out a little bit more statistically. And so it's a lot more telling. I was still surprised to see that Ty Baribo is still the top scorer, top performer on the attacking side. He was in 5, and he was a classic example of an anomalous data point. Came in 6 goals in 5 games, elevated right to the top. Well, he's still at the top, only this time he's only got 7 goals. So last 4 games, he's only had 1. He hasn't, and Philadelphia hasn't been strong. And so, but he's still there. So if you're looking at it, you'd think, oh, Philadelphia, number 1 team. Not the case. But Ty is still a top performer.
Ty, yeah. And wasn't there some statistic you said after the first 5 games? I remember you had this fact of the 6 goals that he scored, he'd done it in like 9 shots or something like that. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. His goal conversion was 66%, 67%.
Wow.
That's right. He scored 6 goals on 9 shots.
That is amazing. That is, just
that has gone down.
Efficient.
That has gone down, by the way. He is now at 39%. So he's still rather effective, but not quite as much. And he doesn't take penalties. So none of these are penalty shots either, right?
Yeah.
Which pump that the penalty takers, they get their stats pumped a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
But like if you're looking in other stories, right? You see a lot of the rise of Evander out of FC Cincinnati and Brian White out of Vancouver speaks to the fact that both of those clubs have been rising and have been top of the ranks, right? The appearance of certain performers like Christian Arango and Josef Martinez out of San Jose, they score a lot of goals, but they're the only ones scoring goals for their clubs, right? So the rest of the team performance isn't so great. But I also added a new variable and a new wrinkle into this statistics, Gary, and that is what I like to call the whiff master phenomenon. In other words, how many big chances and or quote easier goals are some of these players missing? And when you study the whiff factor, yeah, there's some really interesting thing that comes out. Christian Benteke is one of the highest on the whiff factor. Yeah, sure, he scored 5 goals, but he's missed 7 big chances.
Yeah, it's really, and it speaks to sort of just the run of form that he's on particularly. And I think obviously, and as you mentioned before, DC seems to be just too over dependent on Benteke scoring, and when he doesn't deliver, then the whole team suffers and gets hurt for it. So
and then Brandon Vasquez, right, is another one. Yeah. For Austin. He has missed 7 big chances as well. He only has 2 goals, and he's missed a penalty kick.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
So he's got a massive goal conversion ratio of 7%.
Yeah.
7%. That's really bad.
Crazy. And then,
that's really bad.
But interestingly though, as well, Josef Martinez, obviously for the Earthquakes, he's up there as well. But he's obviously, if you look at the stats across sort of like, in terms of the league, in terms of assists and passes and those kind of things, he's actually up there as well as one of the sort of the better.
So is Arango.
As one of the best.
Yeah, the Earthquakes live and die by that pairing.
Yeah.
Right. They represent the vast majority of all the output, the offensive output that Earthquakes do.
Yeah.
And that's not surprising, right? There's a lot of teams that have that one superstar that goes in and takes care of everything. For Atlanta, Lath, right? Their new signing. Yeah. He's big. Columbus, the Crew have Diego Rossi. Chicago Fire have been relying on Hugo Cowpers, right? And interestingly, most of these players are also designated players. They are the ones that they're getting paid the big money to come in and do this work. Yeah. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. Right.
Yeah, you kind of but then again, you have the another anomalies. I mean, let's look down. If you look at the bottom of the Western Conference, right, with Galaxy, who are just absolutely struggling to even sort of just put the ball in the back of the net.
They don't have anybody on anything. None of the lists that I do that talk about top anything mention the Galaxy unless it's top losers, which I don't do.
Yeah, which is
out of respect.
Of course, we want to look on the positive side. But yeah, as we said, there's definitely a Space Jam effect. But I mean, even like, their designated player like Marco Reus in there as well, you'd expect, some of these players to actually sort of stand up above the herd.
No, they don't.
And sort of do it. So it's, it's definitely interesting. And then the other obviously sort of section you had was obviously best defenders, obviously looking at them as well. And obviously just looking at tackles and then clean sheets, which is obviously sort of, I have to say this analysis of like, measuring an individual defender by a clean sheet, I don't think it's the purest and the fairest metric, to be honest, because another defender could tackle someone and give away a penalty and the goalkeeper could sort of not miss it. So, I understand you win and lose as a team.
Yeah. And I'm probably going to tweak that one. I haven't found a formula that I like. That's, I do think passing accuracy is important for a defender. I do think tackles obviously is key. And there may be some other variables that I can put in, but for now I've just put in the clean sheets and I'm not sorting it by the clean sheets. I sort it by tackles. Tackles is what matters, right? The more tackles you make, the better your defending is going to be. And
in theory, but also you could make the argument that a lesser dominant team would have more defending to do, so therefore more opportunity at tackles in a way, right? So the sort of the more, so again, I don't want
you'd think that, but it's not always the case. For example, the second most productive defender happens to be Sebastian Berhalter out of Vancouver,
Vancouver, and they are crushing it at the moment and just really dominating.
So,
right?
you know, the best by statistical analysis is David Schnegg out of DC.
Mm-hmm.
Well, DC's not doing, I mean, they're in the middle of the pack. There are very few of the true bottom teams in this list, because obviously their defending is not that good because they're conceding too many goals. So it really does, it is the realm of the middle of the pack team, right? The Timbers, the Rapids, right? Nashville, although they've been declining, but it's like I said, it's just a different slice, different way of looking at the game.
It's a great way to look at it. It really is. And I think obviously you made this point as well, which is interesting, is, you know, Austin, who should not be sitting second in the Western Conference right now.
They have no right to be sitting in second. None. Zero.
They are.
Zero.
They are, which is interesting. And as you mentioned, and you called this out as well, which is they have a negative goal difference, right? I think so. To be in second place and have a negative goal difference, it's a freak.
It is bewildering.
It's an absolute freak. Yeah. Well, I mean, essentially what happens is you win 1-0 and lose 3-0 and lose by sort of larger margins.
When you lose big.
Yeah.
When you win, you win small. I mean, that's all it means.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I don't think that will be able to continue. They won't be able to sustain that position as well. So it'll be looking there. And then obviously looking through in terms of sort of defenders who scored. Obviously, I thought you had I really do like this as well. This idea of defenders who scored.
It's not a lot. It's not a big list, but yeah. I promised it, and I did deliver.
Yeah, so you've got Vancouver's Adu Kugbe. Is that how you pronounce it? Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so.
In terms of Sam Adekugbe as well, who's got 2 goals, and obviously he's converted 50% of his chances. So he's sort of had 4 shots or 4 opportunities, headers, corners, and these things. So that's good. And then goalkeepers, right? I think interesting how you've obviously look at saves again.
It's saves.
I think it's based on saves, which is fair in a way. Obviously, again, a lesser team will have more opportunities to save, but also a lesser team would be there as well. And the Earthquakes who have obviously got Daniel.
And then I put in the saves inside the box variable, which is because they're saves. Then you do the saves from inside the box. That sort of gives you an idea of how many long shots they're dealing with versus how much of it is more reactive, more reactive save and something that is. And I think they're both just different slices of everything, right? And then you've got obviously clean sheets, and then my favorite one is punches. I just like it because it just sort of shows the aggressiveness of the keeper, right? It's like, hey, do you have to do that? And there's some keepers that haven't done any punches,
I mean,
really.
You could argue that Chris Brady at Chicago doesn't know how to catch, and he just punches the whole time.
You could, given the number of punches he has, but he also has 30 saves, so he's doing something.
Well, it's safe by punching. So I wonder, do you think these data centers and these data APIs as well that get them? They have obviously people just sort of sitting there and sort of marking these things down, taking them manually. I actually think there is an entity or there's a group of, and it could be interns. There are people who just go to games and watch the games to input these things. Check. Yeah. Wow.
And they probably have an app, and they probably have multiples of them in front, and they go in and they just check boxes for everything, right?
Yeah, fantastic.
Because to do this, one person for a game of 22 people is nearly impossible. And some of it is probably also AI driven through the video analysis as well. And then vetted by humans. Absolutely. 100%.
I mean, there have been companies around who have done this for a long time. Opta Index, I know, is sort of one of the more prominent sort of names as well. Obviously, I know
there's also a company called Trace. They do this.
Trace. Yeah. And
Y Scout's the same way. They all do this, right? Yeah. Y Scout's actually used by most college programs in the United States. Trace is used by the MLS Next for all of their academies. So they don't go into the same level of detail that they do, but they track your general touches, passes, everything, and it's all done off the video.
That's all the science side of it as well, as I say. But keep the art.
It's not terribly accurate, but it gives you something.
Yeah, Yeah, indeed. So I think we'll have another episode on Friday, and we'll talk about games coming up, obviously on sort of match week 10 for the MLS.
Correct.
But tonight we do have an interesting fixtures tonight, and then on Thursday night, which is obviously the CONCACAF Cup semi-final.
Semis.
Which is going to be interesting and going to be exciting. We have Tigres against, is it Cruz Azul?
Cruz Azul,
well.
yeah.
I have to say, I don't know too much about these teams, if I'm being brutally honest as well. So,
sure.
So I'm not sure. I don't really.
No, I think the one thing that I know is Cruz Azul. It's that's the proletarian team out of Mexico City, right? That's the one that the majority of people support. Mm-hmm. You've also, I think, got Club America, who also have a sizable, following. I mean, Mexico City's big enough.
Yeah.
They've literally got hundreds of teams.
Yeah.
But if you're talking at the highest Liga level, Liga MX level, Cruz Azul's pretty big, pretty strong. Good team, and solid, always in the running, always in the top third. Yeah. They hardly ever fail. And I would expect Cruz Azul to come out. They've won it 6 times, I believe. America's won it 7 times. So the Mexican teams have a very strong history of winning this competition. And I would expect Cruz Azul to make it into the final here.
Okay. And then on the other side of the bracket, obviously you've got Vancouver against Miami. Obviously, first game is up in Vancouver, up in British Columbia. This is an interesting one, as we've discussed, I think, on a number of times. Obviously, it's kind of a clash of 2 different philosophies of 2 different sides of the coin, right? One is to go and buy sort of stars and obviously, load up on designated players and obviously build a franchise around them. That's the Miami side with obviously Messi, Suarez, Alaba, Busquets, and co. And then on the other side, you've got Vancouver, who have taken a different approach, which is we're going to sort of build up younger players and sort of develop stars and sort of evolve them in a way. And they're both, both teams are on fire. Obviously, Miami unbeaten this season, Vancouver obviously dominating the Western Conference as well. So this is actually going to be quite an exciting matchup.
And they have more points than Miami. Yeah, they've lost 1, but they've drawn fewer. They win more games than Miami does.
Yeah.
And obviously none of that matters because this is a first leg, second leg scenario. So really, but to be fair, the away goals matter in this competition, right? This one is not this does not, the away goals matter. So for Vancouver, I would expect a much more restrained approach to the game where they're focusing a bit more on defensive cohesiveness, probably a bit more on the counter, on the quick counter, because they don't want to yield a goal.
Yeah. You don't want to concede. Yeah.
And so, but when they get to Miami, watch out! All bets are off. Especially if they're coming in even with Miami scoring goals, they're going to come out all just no bars,
just guns blazing as well. Yeah,
guns blazing.
And this is what we've discussed before as well, which is interesting. Again, it's like each competition you have to sort of like change your mind into a certain gear just to sort of assimilate with the sort of the technical rules in a way. Is there away goals? Is there extra time? How does this work? How does it not? Obviously, the strategic advantage is you want to be playing at home on the second leg because the idea is you have the fans behind you who can give you that home field advantage. But of course, you're at the mercy, obviously, of the away goals. So if you do get a sort of
and Vancouver is a good team on the road. So I like Vancouver. I know that the world, the television sponsors, and CONCACAF want Inter Miami to win.
Of course.
But the Qooligan wants Vancouver to win.
the Qooligan wants.
So there you go.
As well. Yeah. Well, I think the one differential maker is, and I've been sort of mentioning this now for a few weeks, is I hate to say this, I fear that the game has left Luis Suarez. He has just really underperformed this season from a striking and a goal scored perspective. He does not look as though he's on it. I think we saw in the last round as well. He was attempting a bicycle kick on the in the dying minutes, which was probably
just sad.
Not move. Yeah. So again, if we're talking about goals scored and coming out hot and fast like Suarez, if he's got some goals in him, I think this would be a time to deliver for Miami. That's for sure.
Not even sure he's going to hit the pitch.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, that would be also a telltale sign if he starts getting dropped as well, because I know.
And if he does, he only comes on in the last 15.
Yeah, and as an impact super sub, and tries to sort of tries not just tell the manager, his old teammate tells him, just try not to bite anyone and don't get sent off. Right, that's
exactly
at some point. Super. Okay, so that's Champions Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup, Thursday and Friday night, which will be entertaining to watch as well. And then finally, we have obviously a new competition that was launched, obviously in the
just
USL
because
side of
that's just what the world needed, was yet another piece of silverware to hoist above your head and spray cheap champagne on.
Not cheap champagne. I'm afraid in this corner it will be Jägermeister. They will be pouring Jägermeister.
Well, unless Jägermeister starts making carbonated drinks, I don't know, man. It's
Jaeger bombs.
But Jägermeister is the sponsor for what used to be, well, this competition started in 2024. Let's be clear. The Jägermeister Cup, or the Jägermeister USL Cup, or USL Cup presented by Jägermeister, either way you want to call it, started in 2024. It was an interleague competition for USL 1. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of reasons that were given in press as to why they were doing something like this, right? They said that the league was unbalanced because there was an uneven number of teams and whatever. I think it had something to do with them wanting more sponsorship revenue, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter what the reason is. The fact is, it's there. It happened. A team won. They deemed it successful and is now expanded to League One and Championship within the USL. So there are 2 leagues competing, and the team size has now grown to 38. So there are 38 squads that are going to be playing this out. It goes all the way through October. It is essentially like a World Cup format. They make groups, and the winners of the groups advance on, and then they go to a knockout phase. So we're talking about group play. There will be 4 games. Each group has 6 teams. 2 groups have 7 teams. You can do math. Everybody can do math, sort of. So you play 4 games, though. You're not going to be playing every team. So there may be some luck of the draw here. It's all random. It's all been randomly determined. It's all been preset. The games are played at the last weekend of April through July. It's pretty simple. There's some prize money there. I don't know how much. I'm looking into it. I've heard it might be as little as $50,000. I suspect with the championship in there now, it's going to be a little higher. Everything's streamed on ESPN Plus, so you'll be able to watch all the games through that medium, and looks great. And sadly, the team that won last year will not be around to defend its title, which is a bummer.
And that defending team was
Northern Colorado Hailstorm.
Great name.
It is a great name, and their logo is fantastic. They have one of the best crests around. Unfortunately, their owner got involved in some rather shady financial dealings, and they were literally kicked out of the league.
They were kicked out of it.
They were kicked out of the league.
Wow. Jägermeister.
They now play in an amateur league.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, so they're actually completely kicked out of the USL sort of format.
Yeah, they're out of the USL. That's it.
Wow. And so what was shady financial stuff?
I did some research. I couldn't find out what it was, but it had to do with embezzlement, and it was a lot of zeros.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so as penalty, so that you punish it because this owner is acting sort of illegally and doing all of these things, he ends up costing all the fans, obviously, sort of the ability to follow their team in the USL pyramid system as well. Interesting. Wow. And so it wasn't anything of like bribing officials or anything as nefarious.
No, not that I know of. I believe that the indictment has been sealed, but I don't know.
Wow. And then Jägermeister sponsoring this. This is, again, I think it's wonderful for the game that obviously there are brands coming in here and obviously putting money behind this for obviously in exchange for exposure. Do we have a sense of how much Jägermeister paid? Normally these kind of press releases are spat out and they say Jägermeister have announced. I know it's not obviously going to be, it's not going to be Apple TV money deal.
Again, but, I don't know of anything definitive. Everything is hearsay, so I'd rather not.
Okay.
And participate in the rumor mill.
And so And obviously the USL have really got behind this competition. Actually, they are not when I say suspending, that's not true. This weekend there will be no league fixtures because of this. That's
correct.
Jägermeister Cup
and the same goes for May and June and July. They all agreed to it. This was an agreement by the championship, and in some ways that's okay, right? Because the USL, they tend to have bye weeks anyway. It does sort of take the league pressure off. It gives them a different outlet for some competition. And if there's some interleague play, so you're going to be seeing some championship teams going up against League One teams. But there's also, unfortunately, fixtures that you've already seen because they do divide the groups regionally. Yeah. So in some cases, it does have a very faint aura of Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup going on.
I was going to say,
it's there.
It's another, as you say, another just what the world needs, another cup competition as well.
Well, no, I mean, I'll give you an example. The opening game on Friday is North Carolina FC against Charlotte Independence. You may remember, kids, 2 weeks ago, it was the exact same fixture for the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup on the 15th of April. Yeah. I mean, is that exciting? Okay. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at this, right? You could say no because it's the same old, but then again, you're talking about regional rivalries. And so you'd hope that there's at least enough regional pride and derbyism that's going on that makes these types of things exciting. And North Carolina and Independence, right? NCFC and they call it the Jacks. The Jacks and NCFC have played each other a lot, right? They've got at least 10 history going back 10 games. Jacks have the slight edge, 5-4. So this time they're at home with NC, but NC kind of beat them pretty solidly in the last round. I would expect them to do it again. Just have to wait and see. I mean, it's cool, right? Yeah. There's so many new League One teams. 5 new League One teams premiered this year, and so they're all getting great spotlight by this, right? Portland, Hearts of Pine, Texoma, Naples. These are brand new teams that never existed, and they're suddenly becoming, names. I mean, I'm telling you, I saw a fan in Washington D.C. wearing a Portland Hearts of Pine kit. Yeah, I would have never expected to see that
already. Yeah,
like they had only played 4 games.
Yeah,
ever.
Well, I got in my feed, like the algorithm served me up a Hearts of Pine podcast as well that has come up.
Absolutely.
Well. So again, it's all of this, and again, it's all good. It's all sort of
that's what you want.
Grassroots development of the beautiful game as well, and obviously
passion.
And again, you can make the case that there's all these Americans getting into obviously sort of owning soccer teams, obviously overseas, but then obviously there's all the domestic activity as well. So again, I just think only all boats will rise with the tide here. They really will. So,
absolutely. I mean, it's great. It's great. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Qooligan, that's taken us around the world as usual in 45 minutes with a little bit of extra time as well. So
and a shot of Jaeger to finish it off.
We'll have to do a watch party or a live stream as well. I don't know.
You can give some Jaeger to that dog that's barking in the background.
Yeah, I know. We'll have to edit that out as well with the AI background. Yeah. Super. Qooligan, as always, thank you. We'll be back on Friday talking about obviously all things MLS, Premier League, and FA Cup semi-finals as well, which we'll go into a little bit.
Better believe it.
Wonderful. All right, Qooligan. Thank you as always.
Peace.